Everybody, welcome to Scott's Space. Today we're going to cover point defense. So I did a bunch of videos on this a couple years, maybe 3 years ago. A lot has changed. They've buffed the PD a little bit. I don't know that I would say a lot, but they have changed it a little bit. And so we're due to update point defense. So I'm going to break this video into 3 parts. The first part I'm just going to talk about what PD is and give you an overview of each of the types. Then I'm going to show the testing. I'm going to do testing of each one. I'm not going to show every test I ran. I'm going to show one test for each PD type versus each weapon type so you can see where I got my data from. But I've run those tests multiple times and I'll give you the end result as we go. At the end, I'm going to give a summary of all the findings. So you could actually jump ahead to that and then come back to how I found all that stuff. So you can decide for yourself whether you agree with me or not. So what does point defense do, right? So point defense, and you'll see as you're watching this, if it gets to that point. So point defense weapons basically target other weapons from the enemy ships that are attacking you. Now, most point defense only attack what's called seeking weapons. So missiles and torpedoes are the seeking weapons in the game. And they do not hit the direct fire weapons. That would be weapons such as the Maxos blaster, the pulse weapons, they call them, the beam weapons, and the rail guns, and the ion cannon. Okay, so PD only focuses on torpedoes and missiles, which are seeking weapons, and fighters, right, and fighter craft. And not only do PD weapons attack those 3 things, regular weapons, if they can't get an attack on another ship. So let's say the ship has longer range weapons than you and the missiles are coming in and you have shorter range weapons. If your shorter range weapons don't get a shot at the enemy ship because they can't hit it yet, they will not as effectively as point defense weapons, but your regular weapons will attack the incoming missiles or torpedoes. It's not that effective, and you'd rather your weapons be attacking than defending. So actually you don't really want that situation to happen. Not that you have a lot of control over it, other than making sure that your weapons have as much range as possible, or your ships get in close to fire those weapons. There's one exception to this. So one of the PD weapons is called a blocking field generator, and that will not very well, but it will also defend against weapons that are not seeking weapons. So what we call direct fire weapons. So I'll show that in one of the videos and you'll see that happening. So basically that's it. Now, the third way, right, that weapons, or I should say the third way that fighters get attacked is other fighters, right? So your defense against fighters are, best case actually is fighters, in my opinion. Second best case defense against fighters is PD weapons, and certain ones work better than others against fighters. We'll take a look at that. And the third one is your regular weapons. So if the enemy fighters come in to attack you and they have greater range than your weapons, then your weapons will also fire at those fighters. That happens a lot when you're coming in, for example, to attack a starbase, a spaceport, I should say, and you're coming in to fight them and you're coming in from long range. They'll launch their fighters a long time before you get even within weapons range, and then your PD weapons as well as your regular weapons will take shots at the fighters, and certain weapons will do better than others. I'm not going to focus on which weapons do the best at PD. I'm going to simply focus on individual PD weapons here. So let's take an overview. We're going to go to the research screen. Let's take an overview of the PD weapons and where to find them in your research screen, right? So again, if you hit this tab here, actually I'm filtering by just weapons here. So if you just go to weapons, you'll be able to see them, and I'll just highlight them as we go. Okay, so the first one is the Buckler Repeating Blaster, the Sentinel Multi-Beam, okay, the Ion Defense, so the Ion Pulse Blaster it's called, but it's under here, under the research is Ion Point Defense. The Point Defense Cannon. There we go. and the interceptor missile. And at the very end, which is actually part of shields, is the, I mentioned this earlier, the blocking field generator. This is under point deflectors here. Now, certain races have specialized PD. So this is the humans that I'm playing here. So if I go back up here, you'll see the humans have this bulwark missile battery. Okay, and that comes, this is after you research basic defense interceptor missiles, you can research this, and that's specific for humans, as you can see from the icon there. I'm not going to review those. I think I'll do one thing with this particular defense, but I'm not going to go over those. I'm just going to go over basic point defense systems. I'm also going to be focusing, so let me put up the table now. So here's the table of all the different point defense systems I'll be reviewing. And I'm doing early game, right? Early game, a little bit mid game, but mostly early game here. They definitely improve as they go, and there are some things like fighters are very hard to hit as fighters get up higher tier fighters. Even as your PD tries to keep up with it, it doesn't do as well as against higher level fighters because they have a lot of countermeasures. But I'm going to focus here on early game where it really matters. Late game, things matter less, right? The early game and early mid game is really where decisions that you make here can make or break, right? So I'm really going to focus on these. Now, there are not, like I'm doing mostly tier 2, right? So as you can see, but two of them, the ion pulse blaster and the blocking field generator, only have tier 3. There is no tier 2 version of them, right? So they're already at, they already take a little more tech than the other ones. So they better, as we do this comparison, they better do better because you're having to go an extra tier. And then each of these, like the buckler repeating blaster and the sentinel multi-beam, have a tier 4, right? I could have compared tier 4 to tier 3. And the tier 4s definitely improve, significantly their performance. In fact, in these little experiments that I run, most of the weapons I'm fighting are tier 3. I believe I'll show you that when we get to them. And most of these PD are tier 2. When you go to tier 4 PD, they do very, very well against the same weapons you're going to watch in the videos here, right? So again, it's always a case of the higher tech, the higher tier, the better they're going to do. All right, so big broad overview before I go into each one of the tests here, right? So big broad overview here is the size that they take up and what type they are here. So the buckler is direct fire, as is the ion pulse cannon, the point defense. The blocking field generator and the sentinel multi-beam are beam, and the interceptor missile is seeking. So there are some differences I'm not going to cover in this video. They just don't make that much of a difference. For example, the sentinel multi-beam defense takes more power to shoot, right? So if you're just making it on power when you're designing your ships, that could put you over the line, right? But most of us who play, and it's strongly recommended, you've got to make sure that your reactor, right, can handle what you're doing. So down here on the right, as you can see, as long as this yellow is higher than all these other systems here, then you've got plenty of power, right? I rarely run into a problem to make this a difference. So things like that, when we go back to the screen here, I'm not really going to get into. But the one that does make the most difference, other than the actual performance, in other words, how well they do against weapons, is the size, right? So when I run these tests, I'm actually running the same number of PD. I think I put 4 PD. I'm not using less for example, the blocking field generator, even though that's a size 15, right? So it should perform much better than the other ones because it's taking up, 50% more room, right? And the interceptor missile is 19. That's like double almost the size of a buckler. So, but in the test, they're all the same number. So you better get better results from that. So we take this into consideration. The buckler and the multi-beam and the ion pulse are really, they're pretty small. And so even if they work out to be the same effectiveness, I want to use those, right? I'd rather use those because they're going to take up much less size. They have different ranges, and they also have different speeds that they get to their target, right? Again, it's not a huge difference, right? You might get one shot earlier on than the other ones, The only thing I think it makes a big difference is the blocking field generator, which has very, very short range. You can look into these screens to see their ranges and see this. I just don't think it makes a big difference, as does the energy usage. It doesn't make a big difference. But you can drill down to that level of minutia and argue that, they're going to have a slight advantage or disadvantage. But honestly, I don't see a huge difference here. And then the last thing, and if we go back to the design screen, the last thing is the placement of these things. As you can see, and again, if you watch my ship design video, right, it's the arcs, right? The arcs. So this is basically telling you when the ship is facing forward or facing backward. Like if you're only going to put one PD here, you'd always want to put it in this particular design. This is I think this is a destroyer. Yeah, this is a human destroyer. You always want to put it in the 270 before you put it in the other slots, right? Or for some designs have 360. So of course, default to that. Or if you're going to put two on here, or maybe let's say three, you'd put one in the 270, one in the back, and one in the front. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, now that you understand what point defense weapons do, and we've got this broad overview of, the main difference here being their size and their tier, so you know how much research you've got to spend to get them each. Let's run through a test for each one of them, and then I'll record how they do. Well, basically what I'll do is I'll do one or two with you, because otherwise it's going to take an hour of video. Believe me, it was hours and hours of work. But I'll at least do one run through, and of course you'll see how each weapons work and what it looks like and the cool sound effects that it has. And then I will rank each one. I'll tell you verbally about my results. Actually, maybe I'll even put it on the screen, but I'll show you the results, like if I did it 5 times or 6 times sometimes. What did I notice in the pattern? And then based on that, I'll make a ranking. Okay. And then I'm going to show you a couple other things before we summarize. And then when I get to the summary section, I'll kind of recap everything that we did. All right. So I'm going to start with torpedoes. So again, there are 2 seeking weapons that all PD will attack. And we're going to start with torpedoes, and then we'll do missiles. We're going to go from left to right on my chart here. I'm going to go bucklers first. Let's take a look at this. So I've got a human ship here. He's going to be our ship on defense, right? So this is where we're testing the PD. And if I click on the design screen here, you'll see it's got 4 bucklers. Okay, and again, I've got it in the 270 position. As I mentioned, it will make a little bit of difference, or it can hurt. And it's got 1 weapon, all right, 1 concussion missile. But on the I kept everything to a minimum on the ships. This is the only thing. Also, the command center will also give a little tracking here too. So there's 10% there, 10% countermeasures, and then the tracking is 15% for the main weapon. We're not really testing the main weapon, but what we're trying to show you is, can this one ship, right, this one destroyer, can he fight off 2 frigates that are heavily armed? Again, I didn't give them bonuses. I didn't give them tracking or anything, but can he hold out? In other words, will these 4 PD make a big difference so that he can take on 2 pretty heavily armed frigates, right? So let's take a look at the frigates that I picked here. And these are Bhaskara authorities. It's one of the guys I was fighting. Take a look at his design here. So he's got a medium torpedo and 2 small torpedoes. Without the PD, and I will show you that actually. In fact, I'll do that next, coming up soon. But without the PD, they lose every time. Okay, so I've been played with the scenarios. I added more ships. I took away ships. I took away, I added the targeting, whatever. And I try to make it so that without the PD, they always lose, and they do. And I'll show you that. And with the PD, they sometimes win and sometimes lose. And the way I'm going to define losing and winning here is if the human ship can disable both of these ships. Doesn't matter if they later repair themselves. The minute they're both disabled, that's a victory. If they disable one ship, that's sort of like an exchange, right? So 1 for 1 before they get disabled, of course. I'm trying to show once the human's disabled, the scenario ends, period. Or if he defeats both ships. So if they defeat none of them, that counts as a loss, right? So I'm looking for a win, draw, or exchange, and loss. And then I'm going to rank how well it does, how effective it is based on each PD weapon and whether they, out of 5 times that I ran it, You know, how often do they win? How often do they exchange or draw? And how often do they lose, right? So let's take a look and let this run. So let me close for a second, and then I want you to see, I will zoom way in for you, watch how PD works here. So pretty soon they're going to fire their torpedoes, and then you'll see the PD come out. Okay, so here come their, no, that's the missiles from them. Okay, here come the torpedoes. And then you'll watch the buckler. There it is. Okay, now they missed, actually, well, they just took one out. The other thing about PD is, even if it hits, it doesn't always, let me just pause this here, it doesn't always destroy them. It will sometimes damage them. But that's okay, because then when it hits your ship, it's going to do less damage. Okay, so in some cases you're seeing it, well, some cases you're seeing it miss. Some cases you're seeing it hit and damaging the torpedo or the missile in the other videos. And sometimes it's taking it out completely. But in all, in all cases, as long as it hits one time, it's reducing the damage you would have taken, right? And then you can see as my ship gets hit here, it takes some shield damage. All right, so we're going to let this run, but you can watch the PD going. So you can see the buckler is pretty fast here. I'm going to speed it up now that you've seen that in action. And the object here is, how many does it take out? Now you can watch, it's attacking one ship. You can see it's almost disabled there. Although the human ship's taking a lot of damage. Yeah, but I thought they've almost got this guy disabled, so we're almost going for an exchange here. So basically I'm trying to test, right? Can the PD keep you alive long enough for you to disable the enemy ship? Oh, it's going to be close. You might not win this one. Oh, he's borderline safe, right? And if you hover here, of course, you can see when the weapons are, the systems are destroyed or damaged, they can't return fire. Oh, but they're still firing. Okay, so I think it's over. He's disabled. No. Yeah, I think no, not yet. It wasn't said disabled, but... Okay, now he's disabled. Okay, so that's a loss, right? This guy's close to disabled. It's almost a draw there, but it will say disabled here, and that's what I'm counting. So that's a loss, okay? And so when I ran the buckler test 5 times, and like I said, I've done it longer than 5 times, but the last time I did it, when I adjusted everything just the way I wanted to, the buckler had a draw 3 times against torpedoes, and it lost 2 times. Now, when I say loss, of course, you can see it did a pretty good job. It did better than if there was no PD. Right? If there was no PD, then both of these ships are not even close to being disabled. I'll show you that in a second. And these guys lose, okay? So anyway, that's the result for the buckler is 3 draws and 2 losses. All right, so I said we're going to do it. Let's go look at testing it with nothing, right? So PD test nothing. And I don't remember if this is versus missile. I think it's versus torpedoes. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do here is if you take a look, these ships are the same as we had before, except there's no PD, right? So this is 1 concussion missile. There's no PD here. And the 2 frigates that we're fighting have the same loadout as before. That's a medium torpedo and 2 small torpedoes, but both of them. Okay, they're the same ship, as you can see. And we'll let this run. I'll let this run pretty quickly. And we'll see that usually it's not going to make much difference. They're certainly never going to win. On a rare case, you maybe get a draw, but usually not. So already this guy's pretty much out of it. And you'll see that both of these ships, that ship's damaged, but much better off than it was when we were using PD. Now he's disabled, right? So this 99 out of 100 times, this is the result you're going to get, which is, one ship slightly damaged, but your ship's disabled. So that's, again, with no PD whatsoever. They've never won. I think maybe, like I've seen 1 draw in 100 times, but this is most likely what's going to happen. A slightly damaged ship, but a loss, right? So every PD has a chance of at least drawing at least once, but you're never going to draw, almost never, practically never going to draw without the PD. Okay? All right, so let's test. That was the buckler. Let's test the Sentinel versus torpedoes. So this is the second one, the Sentinel multi-beam defense. Here we go. Okay, and let's slow it down, and you can see the weapons here. We zoom in a little bit. It's for fun. You know, I should say here, right? These snares are not perfect, right? You could argue to put like 3 ships and see how they protect each other. And all right, let's watch the PD work here. There it goes. So you see the beam weapons firing at them, right? It looks like they took one out. If not, they just damaged it, and they're hitting from a longer range. Yeah, that's pretty good. But there they go. They didn't take one out, but they definitely damaged 2, and there they took one out right there. So let's take a look from freeform here. Oh, he just took one out really close range there. Here's another one. So you can see them firing from their different positions on the ship, which is really cool. Right, that's where we placed them. There's the 271 in the middle. All right, let's let this go on. I don't know why he stopped moving. Oh, maybe his engines got damaged. Yeah. No. Nope. Start damage. I don't know. Start moving. Anyway, they're doing pretty well here. Right? Look how he's not damaged like before. They were damaged. By now, they were definitely... He was disabled or close to disabled. And this guy... Okay. Now, he didn't get disabled, but he's jumping away. And I thought I have these guys not to retreat. But anyway, you know, if he jumps away like this, I'm going to... Let's see. Maybe I can tell him not to. Yeah. If he's jumping away, the point is he has no weapons to fire with, right? So I'm going to count that as disabled. You can see how damaged he was. He had no weapons, so he's basically out of it. It doesn't count as an official disabled, but it's good enough. And look, I'm only at, you know, halfway. I got my armor's damaged here, and my shields, engine damaged, right? Sensors damaged, but still fighting, right? So you'll see this. This is definitely doing better than the buckler was already. So we've already achieved the draw here, but even a win or loss, you'll see these guys do pretty good, pretty well. Wow, it's close. Actually, this might be a win. Yeah, it's going to be a win. And I think that's it. All right, we got a win. So when I run this test with the Sentinel, it wins out of 5 times. It won 3 times. It gets a draw once, and it lost once. And again, I'm not looking for an exact thing. I can do 100 of these. It's really super time consuming. I've done other tests before, even though I had a different setup, and the results were about the same, which is the Sentinel did much better than the buckler. So we're going to call the buckler fair. So I have a number system here where I gave points to each one of them for a loss, for a draw. Well, loss gets 0 points, a draw gets 2 points, and a win gets like 5 points. And, you know, I added it up and then ranked them that way. I'm not going to show you all the back data. You can just judge for yourself here. I'm going to call the buckler fair, and I'm going to call the Sentinel multi-beam good against Torpedoes. Okay, let's take a look at the ion pulse blaster. Okay, we'll slow it down so you can take a look at the what they look like when they fire. It's pretty cool. They took one out right away. Okay. Yeah, so let's see. The one in the back is firing right now. Actually, I kind of take it back that the other ones... Oh, there they go. The other ones are firing. So I'm not sure... Let's take a look. I'm not even sure what their arc is here. Yeah, it's 180 here. So, you know, the one in the back is firing for sure. It does look like the arc is making a difference here. But as they get close, see, like, okay, that one fired at a miss, right? So that may have made it. Let me just move in a little bit here. That may have made a difference. Okay, let's slow it down and see. Yeah, that's definitely the rear one firing. Yeah, see, the other guys are only firing after they... Yeah, after they miss. Let's see if let me take control of the ship and turn it around and see what happens, right? Okay, that was the middle one firing. Now, one thing I didn't mention before is that if there is nothing for the PD weapon to shoot at, it will shoot at the ship. It will do some small damage to the actual ship itself if it's got no targets for itself. That's not happening here, but we'll see it in some of the other videos, like in the missile video. Actually, that one looked like it was firing at the ship, actually, right there. Okay, so you can see for the ion weapon that the arcs are making a huge difference, right? Okay. All right, now we're going to check the... actually, I'll let this run, and we'll let it finish. Okay, so I think we're disabled here, and neither of these ships are disabled. That one's pretty close, though. And so I found that the Ion PD would win 1 time out of 5, draw 3 times out of 5, and lose 1 time out of 5. So I'm going to call that fair. It's a little bit better than the Buckler, but like I said in my other test when I did about 10 runs, I found it was about to be equivalent as the Buckler, but it's slightly better. I mean, if you want to put fair plus there, that'd be fair. But we're going to call that one fair. Okay. Now I want to go back and look at the Sentinel again, and I want to see if I'm going to get a little closer look, and we're going to see if the arcs actually make a difference. Okay. All right, let's let it run to get them close. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's slow it way down. All right, let's take a look here. And let's see from which arc that they shoot from, right? Okay, here we go. All right, so right here they're shooting from the, looks like the one we had that was 2.7. Let's take a look at the design, right? I think it's, Yeah, the 270 slot is right in front of that blue dot there. I think that's the sensor or something, right? Let's see. No, there's the sensor. I don't know what the blue dot is. That is the shield. Okay, it's shield generator. So the one right in front of that's the 270. You've got one in the back. You've got one on the side and one in the front. There's no symmetry there. There's not another one on that side. So we've got a front, a 270, which is, pretty much hitting everything. We've got a back and we've got a side, right? Okay, let's take a look. So that looks like I would say the back. Oh, actually, it's hard to tell. Let me see again. Hold on. I'm not sure where that one's coming from. Oh yeah, the ship's facing this way. That's definitely this. Yeah, it's the 271 is right here. Okay. I mean, the graphic isn't perfect, right? In fact, lost it. But let me free form. Let's check this out. Does it actually look? Yeah, it looks like it's coming from that. Yeah, there we go. I guess it's just a weird angle there. Hard to get that perfect. Yeah, see, it looks a little distorted. And this one's coming from... I mean, this is amazing, right? It's one of the things about this game. It's just amazing that you can actually kind of drill down to there, even though that it's not perfect by any means here, but you can kind of see where it's firing from. Okay, anyway, let's keep watching and see what happens. Right, so the front one is not firing, right? The front one is not firing here. So let's oops, now see that's looks like 3 of them are firing. Actually, no, let me see. Okay, so if we go back to the Sentinel, right? You can see it's got shots per volley is 4. And if you looked at the Ion one we watched a minute ago, they don't always fire 4, right? I'm not sure what's going on. It's 0.1 0.1 seconds apart. That means they should be firing pretty quickly. So if you look, but it doesn't always happen. So here it looks like there's 2 volleys there, but these look like 1 and 1, or that might be 3 from the same one there, and this is 1, right? Okay. There's the back one again, and so we haven't seen the front one fire. So let's grab control of this ship, and let's turn it around and see what the difference that makes. All right, let's turn the ship around and see if the front one starts to fire, right? Okay, here we go. Yep, there we go. See, there's the front one firing. And I bet you if I then spin it around again, we'll get the rear one to fire. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so the arcs are making a difference here. See, now only the rear one and the 270 is going to fire. Ooh, it doesn't look like even the 271 fired. Okay, let's turn it around this way. There we go. It looks like we have 3 firing there. There's 1 here on the right. There's the rear one, and then there's the one right in front of the shield generator there. So we got 3 firing, but it looks like only 1 volley, right? It's hard to know. It's hard to know how many volleys are going off to kind of count them. Those could be separate volleys. I think they are. And there's the front one firing. Look at that angle, though, that it's firing at, right? So you can see, as I said, it's kind of weird as to how the arcs work. Okay. All right. And let's turn them around again. We'll see the rear one's firing. There we go. So that one looks like all 4 fired, right? There we go. That's the image I want to capture here, right? Which is all 4 of them firing at once. So that's pretty cool. Okay. So I'm going to let this one finish up. We're going to make it run much faster, and let's see what happens. All right, so it looks like we lost this one, right? Yeah, so like I said, it's 3, 1, and 1 for the Sentinel when I run it 5 times. But this one they lost. So you can see by me maneuvering it around, it didn't, and trying to use all the arcs, it didn't seem to make a huge difference. So I mean, my point is that no matter what you put on the ship PD-wise, they're always going to be limited by their arcs. And so even kind of manually moving the ship back and forth didn't make a big difference, because this one often wins or draws and very rarely loses when I just let it run by itself, right? And I'm not maximizing the arcs here. So maximizing the arcs is not going to make a difference. So to be clear, I don't mean to say that if you could have 360 arcs, it would be an advantage. It would totally be an advantage, right? But given whatever you have, you know, compared to, in other words, you're trying to figure out which PD you're going to use, they all seem to have, you know, it's going to affect them all the same way. So when I get to my conclusion page, we're going to talk about this a little bit, and you'll see, you know, depends on the ship design whether I would use more than one PD or not. So for this one, I wouldn't, right? The 270 slot's good. I'm not going to really use probably more than one. We'll talk about that later. Okay, let's go to, let's see, at least one of each one. So let's go to the next one, which is we did the Iron Blaster. It's a point defense cannon. Now the point defense cannon looks the coolest. Let's see how effective it is, right? And we'll slow it down again. And again, we're going to look at, you know, which one's firing like we did before. All right, here they come, the incoming weapons. Let's see them actually working here. There they go. All right, and let's take a look if we can see who's firing this time or not. That's the rear one. That's the 271. And that makes sense. It's kind of facing away. I don't know why this right one wouldn't fire. Okay. Yeah, like I said, it's uselessly, right? So you can see this in action here too. It uselessly fires at the, I guess it's saying, look, I got nothing else to shoot at. These have missed, right? These missed from just, you know, they have a % chance to hit, and they missed. But so the PD uselessly fires at these things even though they were a miss. It doesn't know, well, it doesn't smart enough to know not to do that. All right, but again, that probably wouldn't have been able to fire at anything else either. So let's take over and fire. Okay, and let's turn the ship around and watch the other ones fire. Now, as far as its missile weapon, for absolutely sure the missile weapon doesn't care. It doesn't care what direction it's coming from. It'll shoot from the opposite side and turn around. So you never have to worry about where to place torpedoes and missile weapons. They never seem to matter. They'll fire from any position, really. All right, let's see if we can see where this one's coming from. Here they come. Let's see what happens. Yep. Now, that was one volley from each, it looked like. Yeah, see, there's a second volley. So it's, you know, it's not consistent. It's hard to say. They don't always all fire four volleys. And if you want to take a look at what I mean by that, right, so I think there's 4 volleys for these. Yes, so at the bottom here, you see it says shots per volley 4 and 0.1. That's the same as the buckler, I think. So the direct fire ones all kind of do the same. Right, but they don't always fire 4, and yeah, they don't all fire, right, of course, because they're out of the arc. Right, now this guy's just going to sit here. I'm not sure why, but let's see. Oh, there he goes. Okay. All right, anyway, I'm going to let this one run. Oh, because I told him, that's why I told him not to, I don't know why he didn't auto attack, but he didn't. Okay, so this one lost, and it, you know, not quite fair because I stopped it manually right here. But when I ran this test, the PDC loses 4 times and draws once. And again, I'm not doing what I'm doing here. I'm just letting it run. It's fighting. It's telling it to attack. It's keeping its distance because it's got a missile, or trying to keep its distance, and it will lose 4 times out of 1. And again, every one of these has the same position, right? I'm using these 4 slots here. So there's no advantage one way or another. All right, let's check the next one, which is the blocking field generator. Now, the blocking field generator is huge. No, I'm sorry, a super short range. Huge disadvantage, I was going to say. It's got a very, very short range. Okay. So but it's a beam-like weapon. You'll see it shoot. It's very hard to see, actually. All right, let's slow it down. All right, here it comes. I'll go really slow here. So you'll see the beam come out and hit these, or try to hit these guys. There it goes. All right, let's see the next one hit again. There it goes. Took one out that time. Right, and let's take a look at this one. So it it only has one shot per volley versus the 4 of the other ones. Right, I think it has a stronger attack value, but it's very short range and it's only shooting one volley. So that one's from the rear. I don't see the 271 firing. We did see 2 before, I think. There goes 1. That wasn't the rear. Okay. All right, anyway, we're going to let that one run. All right, he's disabled, and neither ship is disabled. He's pretty hurt, but not that bad. Okay, so when I run the blocking field generator 4 more times, this was a loss, of course. I get 1 exchange, 1 draw, and 4 losses. So I'm going to rank that as weak, as I did the PDC. Okay, so versus Torpedo, the PDC and the blocking field generator both come out as weak. Okay. And let's finally go to the last one, which is the interceptor missile. Okay, let's see how interceptor missiles do versus torpedoes. So these guys have our standard torpedo layout. 1 M and 2 S's. And of course, our PD, as always, is 4 PDs with 1 concussion missile for offense. All right, so we're doing interceptor missiles here. Now, the thing you're going to notice here, and you'll see it immediately, is that this is a seeking PD, so it doesn't matter what direction the ships are in. So the arcs in our layout here do not make any difference whatsoever. It doesn't matter if that's 270 or this is 180. They're going to fire and then turn around and head towards the incoming weapons, the incoming torpedoes in this case. Now, I don't know if, I don't suspect it does, but I don't know if a missile is fired in the opposite direction, has to turn around to head in the direction of the torpedo. Does that make it less likely to damage or hit it, right? There's no way for me to easily see what that's going to be. Okay. All right, so let's let this run. And then when they get close, okay, I'll slow it down for you. And let's take a look at what happens here. Okay. So that's just the offensive missiles firing. Now watch the defensive missiles as the torpedoes come in. There they go. Okay. 1 set of 4, 2 set of 4, 3 set of 4, 4 set of 4s, right? So they all fire, regardless of their position or their arc. So it doesn't matter at all. See a lot of them miss. Right, and then they're coming out late on that one, and they're trying to chase down these torpedoes that already missed. And these look like they did nothing, right? The timing seemed to have mattered there. All right, here they go in early enough. So, you know, if they are firing from the opposite side and have to turn around, maybe it does mean they miss a little bit more. And look at that, playing catch-up, actually. So that's interesting. They tried to play catch-up. They never got to it in time. So I don't know what the problem is here, but they don't work very well, as you'll see. See, those guys got out nice and early, and they don't have to turn around. Well, no, they had to turn around a little bit. Okay, but they didn't hit much. So you can now see these guys came late, right? And they're going to have, they're going to have nothing to hit, or they're going to be chasing misses. As you can see, those 4 just hit up in there in the upper left-hand corner. All right, so it's interesting, right? So let's let this run and super fast, and let's just see what happens. Okay, so they're disabled, and I do not think they disabled anybody here. Oh, no, they didn't. This guy is still firing. Very, very close to getting a draw there, okay? The interceptor missile will get 3 draws and 2 losses, so no wins. So we're going to call that fair. It's about the same. Actually, it's the same exact result as the buckler, and just a little bit less than the ion PD, but like slightly different. And like I said, when I ran 10, I noticed that all 3 of these are the same. Okay, so to sum up, let's call up the chart here. To sum up torpedoes, we've got versus torpedoes, we've got fair, good, fair, weak, weak, and fair. And that middle fair is a little slightly better, but again, I'm not running enough difference here to be statistically significant. All right, so that's versus torpedoes. So the winner for torpedoes is the Sentinel multi-beam defense. All right, let's take a look at the versus missiles, okay? Now, now that you've seen every PDC work, I'm just going to run through these super quick because we've seen how the arcs... by the way, let's interrupt myself here. So the missiles had the interceptor missile had no trouble with the arcs because it'll always fire because they're seeking. It's the only seeking PD. And yet, did it make a big difference? No. Right? It's slightly better. It's fair is the result here. But even the Sentinel multi-beam, when it was only firing 1 or 2 and not all 4, it scored much better. Right? So the arcs matter, but regardless of your ship, if you're going to put 4 PD on them, they're all going to have the same disadvantage except for the interceptor missile. And it didn't make enough difference to raise it to good. And at the same time, it's 19 in size, right? So I'm wasting a ton of size here. With the only advantage is it has a nice long range and it doesn't use a lot of power. But for what, right? So again, versus torpedoes here, the Sentinel multi-beam wins easily because of its size and its result, even though because of the arc limitation, it's only firing 2 at a time for the most runs here, right? And it still performed better. Okay, so we're going to go to missiles now, and we'll go to the buckler versus missiles super quickly. All right, and I'm just now that you've seen each one in action, you've seen how the arcs affect all of them except for the interceptor missile. You've seen how they chase, misses sometimes. You've seen how, I don't know if I remember exactly, but I think one of them hit the ship, so you can see the PD weapons will fire at the ship if they've got nothing else to fire at. And let's let this run super quick. Okay, so this is versus missiles, so you'll see they're launching. And of course, our PD here is buckler repeaters again, back to the same way. So everything's the same, nothing's changed. I'm just changing this is versus missiles. Yeah, if you want to slow down just for a second, take a look at, I'm actually firing. It's confusing because we're firing missiles and so are there it goes. Okay, they're firing missiles and so are we, right? So that's why it was like a lot of the missiles. Okay, a lot of misses there. I think only 2 of them are firing. Well, that's actually only the one in the back firing. Right. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's let it run again. Pretty hurt. Oh, we disabled one. Great. Yeah, great. Okay, so we got an exchange so far. And that guy's hurt. I think we're going to get disabled before he does, but actually it's going to be kind of close. Wow, it's really close. He could win this. he might have won it. Yeah, he won. This guy's definitely disabled. Okay, he won. So when I ran this test 5 times versus missiles, the buckler won 3 times as they did here, and then draw 2 times. They've never lost. So we're going to rank the buckler versus missiles as good. It wins more times than it even draws, so that's going to be good. Maybe even a good plus there, but we'll go with good. Okay, let's quickly go to Sentinel multi-beam versus missiles. Let this run super quickly. See them in action there. Oh, we got 1 disabled. Great. And he's still doing okay. It might be a... I don't know. Might be a win. Let's see. Yep, I think it's going to be a win. Oh, yeah. It's a win. Okay, 2 disabled. Again, this is just in case I didn't show this, the Sentinel multi-beam. Tier 2 versus the same exact loadout, not the same as before, the one we just ran, missile, concussion missile, medium and small, and both of them have the same. So I ran this 10 times in a slightly different version of this, but I ran it 5 times right before this video, and it won 5 times. The Sentinel won 5 times. That's the only PD, just a little foreshadowing here, that's going to win every single time. I think it was a draw when I ran it 10 times. It was, like I said, it was a slightly different setup than this, but not too far off. Anyway, I wouldn't call it 100%, but it's going to be 95% or something. So we're going to call this good plus, and it's going to be the most effective result from this test. That's going to be Sentinel multi-beam defense versus missiles. Okay, let's go to the ion blaster, see how it does. Okay, let's take a look at this one. So really, I'm just trying to show you proof of results here. We're not, I'm running it fast just to see what happens at the end. And of course, you can run your own test. You saw pretty much how I set up these guys. I kept them, farther. They're at max range. They're more than max range weapon range when I start. You can argue about if the ships were coming from 2 different sides, they might be more effective, right? That would give the interceptor missile a little less advantage. But, once they start getting in close like this, it's probably going to be about the same. I have run them in different positions and didn't notice a huge change, but your mileage may vary. Okay, it looks like he didn't quite disable that guy, but he's out of it. So I'm going to count that as disabled. Usually... All right. Looks like we're not going to make it. Let's see what happens. Looks like it's going to be a draw here. Oh, he won. Looks like he won. And I'm not calling it disabled here, but I'm going to call this a win. The Ion does, when I ran this 5 times, it won once, it had a draw once, and it lost 3 times. So this was the best of the results that I've ever seen here. Like I said, that'll happen 1 out of 5 times. So a 1 win, a 1 draw, and a 3 loss, we're going to call that fair. Even though this result was probably good, it's a good result. It is a good result. But when you run it 5 times, you're going to get about a fair here. And again, if you want to see the result yourself, please feel free to do it. Okay, so let's do the next one is point defense cannon versus missiles. Here we go. Now, of all of them, point defense cannon is the coolest looking one. But we're not playing for the coolest looking one. All right, he looks like he lost. Yeah, yeah, he's disabled. He's not quite disabled yet, but it's It's weird how, I mean, oh, there he goes. Okay. And well, this was pretty hurt, but he did not get a draw. So that's a loss. And it turns out that if you run this test 5 times with missiles, like I did, you will probably see 5 losses, not 1 draw. We'll call this weak with missiles. This is worst result. I think with the torpedoes, it was 0-1-4, meaning 0 wins, 1 draw, 4 losses. So we're going to call that weak. So far, the point defense cannon has had 2 weak results. Not a good sign. Okay, the blocking field generator. Let's run this super quick. He's pretty hurt already. Looks like he's disabled. Okay, and that is pretty good. He's close to being disabled, but he's not, and so that's a loss. And if you run this 5 times, you'll get 3 draw. Well, I ran it 5 times. I got 3 draws and 2 losses. No wins there. So we're going to call that fair. Missiles, and finally the interceptor missile. Okay, let's see how it performs. And he's not going to win. Oh, no, he won 1. But it looks like, he's disabled, and he's disabled. Well, he didn't quite disable this guy, but he was definitely stopped firing. I mean, you can give that to be a draw there. So when I ran this 5 times, I had no wins, 1 draw, and 4 losses versus missiles. So we're going to call that weak. It's borderline fair, but I'm going to call it weak because I think I remember when I did more, even though it was a slightly different scenario, when I did more, I remember it did not even that well percentage-wise. So I end up calling this one weak. You can call it fair, but either way, it's not that effective. So just to show you how they don't work, just to show you really quick that they don't work versus direct fire weapons. That's why I have this one here. It'll be a 2-second little demonstration here. Okay. There it goes. See it? So the PD doesn't even take a shot at it. It can't hit it. The blocking field generator can. It just doesn't do that well on it. All right, that's enough of that. So you can see, again, it's not a seeking weapon, so this particular PD can't hit it, as is the case with most of the PD. But even the blocking field generator does not do well against direct fire weapons. In fact, I would call it weak. I'm not going to show that one. It's just going to take too much time, but I'm going to put that on the chart as weak. When I do run that one, it's not that effective. It also, it has the disadvantage that it's so close range, it won't ever effectively hit the ships. Not that the multi-beam does much damage to the ships. It doesn't, but still, it's a little bit, right? It makes a little bit of a difference. Okay, so let's go back to fighters. All right. Now, for this one, I had to change things up. So I put 4 defense, and again, it's in the same slots. It's the left, right. Yeah, one of the side ones, the back, the front, and of course the middle 270 here. So there's 4 PD and no weapons, right? So all we're trying to do now is to see, the test here is, can you survive like when you die, how many fighters and bombers did you take out? Okay, I'm not going to go into the depth here. You could, how they're a little more effective against bombers and not so effective against fighters because the fighters have better countermeasures sometimes. And again, it depends on the race and the tech and everything. But I didn't go into that level of minutia. I'm just counting total number of fighter craft, both bombers and fighters, that you take out before you're destroyed, right? And then so it's just a comparison case. Now, what each of these guys have, there's 4 of them. It's got fighter bay, which is 6 fighter capacity. So you're starting off with 24 fighters. You can see them launching right now. They have no other weapons. So it's 24 fighters, and what I want to see is how long you can survive, and after you're done surviving, how many did you kill? And I'm gonna judge that by, if you look here at the bottom, it says 3 interceptors, 3 bombers, 0 building. So when they take a loss, they begin immediately building a new fighter. Now, if the battle goes on long enough, you can argue that, oh, one got built and he got out, so I'm missing a loss. But everybody's getting the same. Every test is going to get the same result, the same methodology. So it all works out. And again, it's a rough estimate, right? We're not going to go super ridiculous here. It's just to give you a feel, because really it's, you'll see in my conclusions that a lot of this minutia is not going to make a whole lot of difference. We're just trying to get a feel for overall who's better and the best bang you get for the size. Okay, so there they go, firing now. And you'll see the fighters come in. And of course, now look at this. Well, no, that's not true. So 3 of them fired at the fighters. 3 of them fired. This guy looks like he's firing 2 at once, or a split second afterwards. So he's getting off 2 shots, it looks like. It's hard to tell. So there 3 of them are firing here. And once the fighters are on all sides, then all 4 of them will be firing. Let's take a look. All right, here come the fighters. They're attacking. They also, by the way, I didn't mention this also, the PD weapons here will also sometimes fire at the weapons, if they're seeking weapons, that the fighters are fighting, right? So just to add a little complication here. And again, that's so even if I say at the end of this test, well, they only shot down 10 fighters. Yeah, but they also destroyed some of the incoming. They definitely look like torpedoes or missiles. I think those are torpedoes, actually. Yeah, those look like torpedoes. But they're seeking, I think. So you'll see once in a while that the PD will shoot at the weapons, not at the fighters. But anyway, everybody has the same, it all works out. And when we're just trying to do a comparison here, not to give you a full, now look at that. I think all 4 are firing now. Yeah. All right, so that's pretty cool. Now you can see already there, and he didn't take any losses. He didn't take any losses. He took 3, right? So he's already lost 3 bombers. And as I mentioned, it will take out more bombers than it will interceptors. Right, so I'm going to let this run a little quicker because we're going to run out of time here. So before he gets disabled, how many fighters were he able to destroy? That's the question, right? He's almost disabled. I'd call that disabled. Okay. Anyway, let's keep the count now. So 3 building, and all the bombers, 3 building and 3 building, right? So the PD is definitely more effective against bombers. They're all lost all their bombers. So that's 12. I think we can count. He's disabled. Okay, so it's 12. So the count is 12. All right. So when I ran this test about 10 times, I think. When I ran it, even though we got 12 here, the average number of fighters by the Sentinel multi-beam is 8. So that's actually pretty good. That's about as, in fact, that is the highest, a little foreshadowing here. Sorry to spoiler alert. That is the highest, but there are other ones that are about the same. And I'm not counting, 1 less fighter is going to make a big difference. So on average, it will take out 8 fighters before it's disabled. Okay, so we're going to call that good. Okay, the buckler. I went out of order here, I know. Let's do the buckler versus fighters. All right, I'm going to run them all quickly here for time's sake, but you can see the bucklers firing really quick. There they go. And you'll see that they're all, once the fighters are on all sides, then they're all firing, which is great. All right, we're going to just let it run super fast so we can just see the results here. All right, I think he's done. Let's see. So he's hit 2 bombers, 3 bombers. He's hit 3 bombers. That's about it. I think he's gone. Okay, he's disabled. That's 3 bombers, right? So if you run it 10 times, though, 3 is about in fact, 3 is the most he's ever gotten. That's the best result you just saw. On average, it turns out to be about 1.7 fighters compared to the 8 on average that the Sentinel multi-beam gets. So we're going to call that weak versus fighters. All right, next is the ion pulse versus fighters. All right, here we go. You can see again, they're firing in all directions here, so they're all getting used. Okay, he's disabled. Let's see what he did. I kind of waited a little too long. That's one bomber. It's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Okay, good. His average is about 7.7, which for all, you know, margin of error there, it's the same as the Sentinel multi-beam. So it's 7.7 instead of 8, but it could be 8, right? So we're going to call that good as well. So the Ion Pulse Blaster is good on fighters. So this is where PD overall shines, is definitely against fighters. All right, next is the Point Defense Cannon versus fighters. All right, let's take a look. All right, it's really cool because they're coming from all different directions once they get into it. This is the one that most reminds me of the first scene of my video here with the Galactica firing. All right, he's out of it. Okay. Now, 2, 2, 2, 2, that's 6, 0, that's 6. Okay. But that just wasn't a great run for him. He usually does average 7.3, slightly less than the Ion PD and the Sentinel. But, I mean, again, and this was lower than normal, but I had 3 runs in a row where he got 7, one run where he had 8, and one run where I think 8 was the highest he got. But again, about 7.3. It's effectively the same as the 8 and the 7.7. So we're going to call this one good as well. All right, the blocking field generator. And because the blocking field generator cannot hit the ships, even though I've told this ship, here, let me show you. If I tell this ship, it's interesting. If I tell the ship to attack, it's got nothing to attack with, so it won't move. Okay? Not that you're ever going to have a ship in this layout, right? With this loadout. It's not going to happen. But anyway, it's funny. It won't move. And when a ship doesn't move, if there were countermeasures, there are none. But when a ship doesn't move, countermeasures don't work at all. So you're a lot more vulnerable if you're not moving. Again, for this, it doesn't really matter too much. It does make a difference. Actually, let me see if I can just move him. Oh yeah, at least if he'll move, that will help. Not that I didn't put any countermeasures on, so I don't think it's going to matter. But we'll just move him anyway. Now they're not moving, which is interesting. Oh, I know what happened. Let's set them again. They declared peace. I shouldn't change. Yeah, it's not going to matter. So, because there's no countermeasures on this. All right, let's let this run. There's the yellow beams. They're firing. They're not doing so well. All right, they're disabled already. So, did he get any at all? Not really. Yeah, in fact, they get 0. I ran this 9 times, 10 times, and every single time they got 0 hits. All right, and the last one is the interceptor missile versus fighters. Okay, here we go. There they go. They're firing all of them. They're firing at long range. Oh, he's disabled. Okay. He got, let's see, got 3 there. That's it, just 3. Yeah, that's about right. So when I ran this test 10 times, I got 4 for the average. 4 for the average, which is not great. So we're going to put fair on this one. It's slightly better. Well, it's definitely better than the blocking field generator, but 4 is about half of what all the other ones got, except for the buckler, which was weaker. So it's a little better than the buckler. So, you know, call weak plus or call the buckler weak minus. I'll just, as a quick bonus, because you've been so patient and waited, I'm going to show the human unique one here. So I can find it. Here it is. There she is. Okay, and this is the Bulwark missile battery, or size 17. They're pretty big. Slightly smaller than missiles and bigger than the blocking field generators. So they're huge. They take up a lot of room, which is already a disadvantage. The rest of the stats are very similar, and you can watch them in action here. It's really cool to watch, so we're going to slow it down for you. Here they come. Yeah, not much different looking from the interceptor missile. They have a cool little sound, though. I mean, you think of the depth of this game, which, you know, every weapon has a different sound, a different look, right? Every weapon, you know, the arcs and everything else. It's just the detail of this game. The strategic level I struggle with a little bit when it gets really tedious to play and everything. But, you know, the detail of this is just amazing, right? It's a work of art, if you will, with all its flaws. It's just an amazing thing. So these guys do okay. Just a little spoiler here before he gets disabled. I'm going to run a little quicker now. All right, they just went, and I think we got 3, 6, 9. So they average about 7.5, about the same as everybody else. So they're no better, no worse on average, at least on a 10-run test, than all the other ones. But they're size 17 or 18, whatever I said, right? And they're also tier 4. I think they're tier 4 or tier 3. Anyway, tier 3 or tier 4. They're higher tier than everybody else. They hit about the same as everybody else against fighters. And, you know, so in the end, when I do the summary, I'm not going to cover the specialties for each race, but no big advantage here. And in fact, the disadvantage is the size. Okay, so let's go to our summary, which is not going to take long. So let's summarize everything. First of all, let's summarize what we discovered from all these tests today. In fact, about each different part of it. Okay, so first, let's look at the results. And if we look at the results, the Sentinel multi-beam defense here is the best one. It's got good ratings on all 3. Again, it can't hit. It can, you know, it can only hit seeking weapons. It can hit direct fire weapons, but not that the blocking field generator did great against that. The blocking field generator did weak or fair at best against everything else. So the clear winner here is the Sentinel multi-beam defense with good on all categories, and its size of 11 and only being tier 2, with its main disadvantage, and it's not really disadvantage at all as far as I'm concerned, is it does take a lot more energy than the other ones, than most of the other ones. So it does take a little more energy. Do I ever notice a difference? No. And like I said, just keep your the reactors to be a little bit, you know, 1 tier higher, which I do anyway. I hate to deal with worrying about energy in general. So the clear winner here in my book, and this has not changed. I know I used to rank the buckler either in my guide or something. I said the buckler was the best because of its size, because it's not that different from the Sentinel multi-beam. This was 2 years ago. So I've ranked them both very, very high. So now the new king, if you will, is the Sentinel multi-beam by far. With its only 1 more size than the buckler, it's 3 good results. All right. So second place really goes to technically goes to the ion pulse blaster, with it being a little bit bigger than the buckler. But its results are slightly better, and certainly against fighters, which is something you're going to encounter all the time, versus torpedoes and missiles, which you'll sometimes going to encounter. So being that fighters are the most common thing I think you'll face, I think the next one is the ion pulse blaster is good. So we're going to end that as number 1 and number 2, with the buckler, I guess, as the bronze medal for number 3. I would never use the other ones. They're just too big, and they are less effective. Again, we want to stress, not that it helped the interceptor missile with its results at all, but we want to stress that the arcs, the field of firing, so the arc placement, it does make a big difference. Okay? And of course, the other thing we want to talk about is PD even worth it? So what do I mean by that? So here's my last point about PD, right? we gave up, right? We only had one concussion missile here, so we gave up 4 slots. Not that you have enough room to fit more concussion missiles, but anyway, I've used up all the remaining slots here with PD, right? With 4 PD. And it did help, right? It did help. Certainly without PD, you lose 99 out of 100 times. With this PD, right, at least versus Torpedoes, if you remember, my result was win 3, draw 1, lose 1. Okay? But the question is, what would happen if I had no PD, if I replaced all 3 of these and I squeezed in one more concussion missile? So let's take a look. In other words, is it even worth putting PD on here? Now, if you can fit 2 missiles and 1 PD, right, in the 270 slot, of course, which would be your best slot. For again, this is just a human destroyer. Other races have better, worse or better, but usually better arcs around their ships, and of course, other human ships have different arcs too. But the question is, would it be better to have, let's say, 2 concussion missiles and maybe only 1 PD versus more PD, right? So let's take a look at that. So let's load this one up and take. Okay, so my last test here, what I'm going to take is, and I'm starting close on purpose because I don't want to give the missiles advantages, right? These guys, actually, I'm not sure if they are firing missiles too. It's okay. Anyway, I don't want to give this guy's missiles advantage. I just want to show, like, I'm putting this ship at his disadvantage because he's closer to these guys, or at least it's a break even here. I didn't want to start him far out. Okay, so what I did here is I dropped all the PD, right? And I could have fit another one. I think I have 596 to 675. So I could fit a PD, and that would be fine, like 2 concussion missiles and a PD. And of course, that would skew the results a little bit here. I just want to say, if I took all the PD off and replaced those 4 PD with 1 more concussion missile, right? And again, would I fare better, right? In other words, is a stronger attack better than a mixed strong attack and a medium attack and a medium defense here? All right, so let's let this run. All right, so now I've gotten, again, the missiles don't care about the arc, so both my weapons are firing pretty regularly here. All right, and you can see that guy's already pretty hurt from my first volley. We took some damage. And again, right, this is a particular setup. Every scenario could be different. You could argue with more ships, things aren't going to be about the same. But this is the best one. I tried a lot of different layouts, and this one seemed to be the best results for me. So anyway, I'm going to let it run a little quicker, and let's find out what happens. You can already see I'm doing pretty well. This guy's almost disabled, if not already. There he is. He's disabled. Okay. And now it's me versus the last guy. And look at, my shield's already regenerated here. He's getting hurt pretty badly. So a lot of players, just to give you a little background on this, a lot of players, not a lot, some players have said on Discord, for example, that they would make like for your fleet, you'd have a whole bunch of frigates and destroyers and cruisers, and they would dedicate, some people said they would dedicate all the frigates to be just PD, right? And then strip them of weapons. Okay, so you can see what happened here. And by the way, this is 100% of the time for these ships. Now remember, my destroyer is a little bit stronger than these guys, right? But you saw that he lost. He lost when he had PD, many times when he had just PD and 1 weapon. So 2 weapons wins every single time. So now that the summary of which PD is best is answered, now the question is PD really worth it, right? And the answer to my question from this little bit of testing here, and even my experience, is not really. So when I say not really, what I would say is not at the expense of another medium-sized weapon, right? Versus a small weapon, I might take it. And again, this is not a test versus fighters where PD is very effective, right? And again, remember, your main weapons will also shoot at the fighters when there's no other target to shoot at, right? And they're relatively okay at it. I mean, they're not nearly as good as PD. But, so would I sacrifice a medium weapon for extra PD? The answer is no. Would I build 2 medium weapons and put 1 PD, and again, it would be a Sentinel multi-beam if it's my choice, in the 270 slot, right? Yes, I would do that, right? So if I upgrade this, just to show what I'm talking about here, right? So if I hit upgrade, so here I would go to my 270 slot, which is here, and I would say, yeah, I would definitely put a Sentinel multi-beam here. Okay, now this, again, this loadout would handle a lot more. So you might argue, could you put a third weapon here? Let's take a look. You could, right? Okay, no, sorry. I don't know. I don't think you can. Let me take a look. Yeah, you can. Okay, so I would put 3 weapons here, and then on my 270, oh, that actually took my 270 slot. No, yeah. No, there it is. Okay. And then I would put a multi-beam. So this ship's a little bit too big to demonstrate what I'm talking about here, but let's say that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. My point here is I would never sacrifice a slot that I could use medium for, or the size limitation of my ship, to put more PD. What I did here is I put the maximum number of concussion missiles at medium size, or if I had large, I would do large, right? And then whatever slots were left open, I would put some PD because it's definitely going to help. But never would I sacrifice a weapon slot for a medium or large if it meant that, you know, for PD. So if I could only fit 2 large concussion missiles, for example, and no PD, I would go with the large concussion missiles and just bypass the PD. If I can fit a little bit of both, I mean, you know, fill my weapon slots and then put whatever PD I can here. So again, these slots won't hold, the remaining slots here won't hold a medium, right? You can see I can't fit, oh no, I'm wrong, it will. Oh, okay, it will, 270. Yeah, so I take it back from this particular one here. I would totally put 4 medium concussion missiles here and bypass the PD. Wouldn't even bother with it. Okay? In this particular layout. Most ships, there's always a little enough room for some PD, but overall, I would go with the concussion missiles. Now, what I didn't show you is how would this fare versus ships with fighters, right? And the only time when this is going to become an issue is if none of your other ships in your fleet have fighters, and you're attacking something like a spaceport from far away and they launch their fighters at maximum range, or you're approaching another fleet with a lot of fighters at maximum range, and the fighters are coming in first, your missiles will fire at the fighters and they'll do okay at them. They'll not do great. And you get swarmed by these fighters. But in most real scenarios, you've got, in fact, even with my destroyers, I always put fighter bays here. So to be totally honest about how I would do this, and I would probably have medium tech at this point. This is my real layout here, right? I would do something like this. Actually, I would put the 270 slot last. See, I don't think I can fit 3. I can fit, maybe I could. Yeah, okay. So I would put 3 of these. I'd put hopefully a medium starfighter bay. And then I would put whatever's left over for PD, right? This is how I would, yep, that's exactly what I would do here. So that, for this particular ship, and again, I would try to get a medium one. I don't know if I could fit it and do this. But so if this was what the technology I've had, this is what my layout would be. Okay? So you're never going to have so in this case, I might put 4 concussion missiles on this thing and then have, you know, carriers or cruisers with fighter bays. So I would have, I wouldn't have any PD or any, and maybe my frigates would have, you know, maybe, 1 PD and 1 medium missile, or 2 medium missiles and 1 PD. And then my cruisers would have a couple of PD slots, but they'd have their fighters. So it's never like I'm going to go into battle just with these destroyers and just with 4 concussion missiles. So I'm not even worried about fighters in this case. The answer is always maximize your weapons first, your offensive weapons first, and then whatever you got left over, but again, I would prioritize other things like the shield. Let's see if I have them. I would prioritize other things such as the quantum capacitors, right? I would definitely prioritize those over PD. That'll help my shields. So again, after everything else, if there's some open slots, I will put PD on there. But I am not prioritizing it over weapons is my final conclusion. Okay, I'd love to hear your comments, and it's great. It's okay to disagree, and if somebody wants to run more tests than I did and compare the statistics, that'd be great. I hope it opens a discussion, but I'm pretty confident that my 2 conclusions about don't prioritize PD over weapons, and if you're going to use PD when you can, if there's some open slots, definitely you go with the Sentinel multi-beam, and that's my final conclusion. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys